Welcome to this explainer. We so often treat history like it's this perfectly static timeline, right? Just a neat, orderly sequence of events that we've completely figured out and locked away in dusty textbooks. But honestly, history is a living, breathing thing. It's constantly subject to sudden, profound revisions. Today, we're zeroing in on early African civilizations. Specifically, we're going to look at how one absolutely remarkable discovery in West Africa forced archaeologists to completely redraw that accepted timeline. We are talking about a society that didn't just, add a little footnote to our understanding of human development. No, they completely rewrote the foundational narrative of exactly when and where complex societies first emerged.
So how often does a single discovery completely rewrite our history books? It's a question really worth considering, because let's face it, we all carry around historical blind spots. For the absolute longest time, the study of ancient history was heavily concentrated in just a few specific regions, mostly centered around the Mediterranean or the Near East. And because of that intense focus, plus a general lack of early archaeological funding in West Africa, there was this prevailing assumption that we basically already had the full, complete picture of the ancient past. We literally just assumed that large-scale, complex societal development skipped certain regions entirely until much later. But as the ground yields its secrets, we're constantly reminded of that old saying, absence of evidence is definitely not evidence of absence.
Okay, let's dive into this. For generations, the entrenched historical narrative operated on one very specific, very flawed assumption, that advanced, complex societies in sub-Saharan Africa developed much later. And often, historians just assumed it only happened through the influence of outside forces or migrations from other parts of the world. It was a superlinear and, quite frankly, incredibly limited way of viewing global development. But then came the unearthing of the Nok artifacts. And that discovery completely shattered those long-standing assumptions. We suddenly had hard, physical evidence of an indigenous, highly advanced culture that thrived entirely on its own. The reality of these artifacts completely dismantled the old textbooks. They proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that complex innovation wasn't imported to West Africa. It was born there.
So, allow me to introduce you to the brilliant architects behind this massive historical paradigm shift, the Nok culture of ancient Nigeria. Centered around what is now the Jos Plateau, this was not just some small, isolated little settlement, not at all. The Nok culture was a widespread, dynamic, and deeply connected society that spanned a massive geographical area. The landscape they inhabited was incredibly rich and complex, providing all the resources they needed for a booming population. They weren't just a fleeting moment in time, they were a dominant force that totally shaped the region. By examining the physical evidence they left behind in the Nigerian earth, we're introduced to a people whose very existence challenges literally everything modern historians thought they understood about West Africa's developmental timeline.
Now, the truly staggering part of this whole discovery really comes down to a matter of age. We are talking about a civilization dating back over 2.5 millennia. Think about that. 2,500 years ago, the Nok culture was already established and flourishing. Just to put that into a global perspective for you, while the golden age of Athens was shaping classical Greece and the Roman Republic was just barely taking its earliest forms, the Nok people were already mastering complex industrial and artistic practices in West Africa. This sheer antiquity is a real game changer. It completely recontextualizes the timeline, proving that sophisticated societal development was happening simultaneously across entirely different, completely unconnected parts of the globe.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down their tangible achievements, the things preserved in the very materials they worked with. First off, they are responsible for the oldest known terracotta sculptures in all of sub-Saharan Africa. And I have to stress, these were not simple rudimentary little figures. We're talking life-size in some cases. They were characterized by absolutely sophisticated artistic techniques. We see elaborate, intricate hairstyles, really expressive faces, and these distinctive, pierced eyes that just scream a deep understanding of aesthetics and form. But here's the kicker. Their mastery wasn't just limited to clay. They also demonstrated the early use of iron technology. Now that requires an entirely different skill set. You have to understand how to build furnaces capable of reaching immense, blazing temperatures, how to extract iron from solid rock, and then how to forge it. They were exceptional artists and highly advanced engineers, all at the exact same time.
This dual advancement,
art meeting early iron technology is incredibly profound. In the study of ancient civilizations, it is highly unusual to find a society that masters these two vastly different domains at the exact same time. Usually, human development follows a much more sequential path, right? A society might master basic agriculture and functional tools just for sheer survival, long before they have the luxury of leisure time and resources to develop high-level artistic expression alongside complex metallurgy. So the fact that the Nok culture was mastering both the aesthetic beauty of terracotta and the hardcore scientific reality of iron smelting simultaneously, that completely elevates their historical status. It points to a society with deep resources and a profound intellectual curiosity.
So, the crucial point is that the definitive conclusion drawn from all this evidence is crystal clear. Complex societies with advanced craftsmanship existed in West Africa much earlier than anyone had previously assumed. But I want you to really think about what advanced craftsmanship actually implies about a society. To have dedicated artisans and blacksmiths, a civilization absolutely must have a reliable food surplus so that, not every single person has to spend their days farming. It requires a division of labor, it requires sophisticated trade networks to distribute the goods, and likely a pretty complex social hierarchy to organize the whole shebang. The craftsmanship isn't just about making beautiful objects, it is literally the physical fingerprint of a highly organized, thriving, and deeply complex societal structure. Which brings us to a fascinating and frankly thrilling realization for the future of archaeology. What other advanced ancient societies are still hidden out there, just waiting to challenge our assumptions? Sub-Saharan Africa, and honestly, so much of the rest of the world, still contains vast, completely unexcavated regions. If a civilization as advanced, as widespread, and as ancient as the Nok could remain hidden for centuries, only to suddenly rewrite our entire understanding of early African history, well, the ground beneath our feet surely holds more secrets. It's a great reminder to stay humble about our modern understanding of the past, and it keeps us wondering what brilliant cultures are just waiting to be unearthed to prove our history books wrong all over again. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.